everyone, Republic Jim here. I'm just back out in the barn getting in another deadlift session with the trap bar. Slowly ramping up on the weights and trying to get back to where I was prior to all my troubles with injuries, which I talked about in a previous video. But I've done one set so far. I have 3 more sets of 3 reps on this, going with a little bit heavier weight now and dropping down the amount of volume. But I wanted to talk a little about the challenges of strength and conditioning while aging. And just for anybody that's wondering, I'm currently 58 years old and will turn 59 later this year. So not too far away from the big 6-0. And I definitely have noticed that it's more challenging to consistently work out and stay in shape. And I'll get into that in a moment here. First, time for me to quit blabbering and get another set in. Okay, so as I was saying, obviously, everybody should understand that once you get up there a little ways in years, it gets a little more challenging. One thing I have in my favor, though, as far as gaining strength, is that I was very athletic as a teenager when I was in school, and then I had a physical job for quite a few years, but I never really worked out at that point. I just did my job. But I didn't start back in the gym consistently until I was 49. So currently, I actually don't have that much training mileage on my body. There's a lot of years in between there where I wasn't doing much. So just getting fat and out of shape. So, my body's not as beat up as it could be. And it's also a fact that I was never really all that strong. When I was younger, I was much more interested in just being fit and athletic, and never really seriously got in the weight room, didn't know what I was doing when I was in there, and I never had any coaching. So I really wasn't that strong as a teenager, and then all the years of doing physical labor, it was more like strength endurance and never any real maximal stuff. So, and then, in the years since I've been training in my old age, I've again been focusing more on just overall health and fitness and pushing for some strength, but certainly not in the way of like a power lifter going for maximal strength all the time. My nervous system hasn't been trained like that at all. So, honestly, my max lifts are far from impressive, but at my age, I still have room for improvement. Unlike somebody that hit their ceiling like in their 20s or 30s with just incredible strength and then is struggling trying to maintain that over the years, I never reached that ceiling. So I do still have room to continue making gains for a while, as long as I'm sensible about how I do things. I really have to work to avoid getting injured, and I have to manage my fatigue since I have so many other things to do. But the main thing that I've noticed as I get older, which should be a no-brainer. It's just harder to recover from hard workouts. Everything just takes longer, and I feel more aches and pains for a few days. So I have to really work at managing the fatigue and allow more time for recovery and be smart about it. So, more on that in just a moment. Okay, so yeah, I have to definitely be more aware of my sleep and trying to make sure that I get more of that, unlike when I was young and I could do all-nighters all the time and just get away with a real lack of sleep. Now I really feel it on my recovery if I don't get adequate sleep. And I try to almost every night before bed do some sort of light core work or some mobility stuff and some good stretching. I don't worry about stretching everything, but I at least like to stretch my legs out and work on my back a little bit, and that has certainly helped out. And then as far as my actual workouts, I've learned that I need to do a little bit more warm up. I can't just come in and do just real quick warm up and jump right into real high intensity stuff. But I do, for the most part, just warm up with ramp up sets on my primary lift. You know, I hop on the bike or the cross-country ski machine and do a few minutes just to warm up my muscles and get my heart pumping a bit. But that's just an easy thing that I do. And then I just, you know, get into my primary lift. But I spend more time on the lighter weights and do more reps at that than what I used to. Just have to work at easing into it a bit before I start hitting the higher weights, you know. And I also ramp up a little more gradually now. Before I get to my working sets, I'm not quite as aggressive in adding weight. So, like, you know, when I first start out with the very bottom, you know, obviously I add a bit of weight to that more quickly, but then as I approach my working set, you know, like with this, I was making jumps of around 50 pounds, which in my younger years I would have been able to get away with being more aggressive on those jumps. But as it is, I need to get in a few reps at each of those stages just to prepare myself for the heavier weights. And you know, that's just a limitation that I've learned, just because if I try to go too quickly, then I hit those weights, then I just kind of hit a wall that I didn't used to. So it's just recognizing the limitations of aging and working around that. So, you know, just ramp it up gradually and then hit those. But, you know, one thing that I can at least feel good about is that, you know, I'm still, as I'm getting back to where I was before, I'm still lifting stuff that's respectable. And like this example on trap bar deadlift, I'm currently doing sets of 3 with more weight than what would be the maximum score on the Army Combat Fitness Test, which I've ranted about before. You can see that in my playlist. But anyway, so, you know, I'm getting up to the point where I'm still at least being able to do reps with a reasonable amount. And I intend to push it up to, like, within the next month or two, going for a new 1 rep max. But for now, I just have to be consistent and intelligent about the way I build up to it. So yeah, that's it for my working sets on the deadlift here. And after this, I'll be doing some cardio. I think today I'll do a little time on the cross-country ski machine. I definitely have been trying to get more of just steady state cardio work, low intensity, because you know, as I age, obviously my heart and lungs are more of a concern than 20 years ago. You know, I want to make sure that I keep them in good shape, and preferably increase my endurance past where it was before, keep improving on that. I think I still have a long ways to go on that, and I should be able to make improvement for quite a few years yet before I kind of hit my peak and start declining. And I'll hold that off as long as I can. I think right now I'm going to do a little bit of a dead hang just to stretch out my lats and such. Doing the deadlifts does definitely work them, and so, you know, I found dead hangs are definitely effective in helping prevent shoulder and back problems and such, and use them a lot, both for trying to fix problems that exist and also just for prehab to stay healthy and avoid any further injuries. Anyhow, I guess I should wrap it up. I'm starting to ramble here, but I'm going to do my dead hangs and then do some cardio and call it good for the day. Hope that was interesting. This has been Republic Jim. I'll talk to you later.